the third dynasty of ancient Egypt, and we are coming to much more popular names and interesting stuff also for general public. So dated between 2592 or 2603 and 2544 or 2686 BCE, different sources. There were links of kinship between Khasekhemwy and the third dynasty, but the change between them is marked by a definitive shift of the royal burial place to Memphis. Its first king, Sanakte, is attested in reliefs from Maghara in Sinai. His successor, Pharaoh Djoser, whose name was Neteriket, was one of the outstanding kings of Egypt. His step pyramid at Saqqara is both the culmination of an epoch and as the first large all-stone building, many times larger than anything attempted before, the precursor of later achievements of pyramids. The pyramid is set actually in a much larger enclosure than that of Khasekhemwy at Abydos, and contains reproductions in stone of ritual structures that had previously been built of perishable materials. Architectural details of columns, cornices, and moldings provided many models for later development. The masonry techniques look to brickwork for models and show little concern for the structural potential of stone. The pyramid itself evolved through numerous stages from a flat mastaba, which is an oblong tomb with a burial chamber dug beneath it, common at earlier non-royal sites, into a six-stepped, almost square pyramid. There was a second symbolic tomb with a flat superstructure on the south side of the enclosure, and this probably substituted for the traditional royal burial place of Abydos. The king and some of his family were buried deep under the pyramid, where tens of thousands of stone vases were deposited, and a number bearing inscriptions of the first two dynasties. Thus, in perpetuating earlier forms in stone and burying this material, Djoser invoked the past in support of his innovations. So this Djoser's name was very famous in later times, and his monument was studied in the late period. The architect, or probably priest, or sculptor Imhotep, he was master sculptor, and it's preserved from the step pyramid complex, may have been its architect, may have been. He lived on to the next reign, and his fame also endured, and in the late period he was deified and became a god of healing. In Manetho's History Egyptica, he is associated with the reforms of writing, and this may reflect a genuine tradition for hieroglyphs were simplified and standardized at this time. This Djoser's successor, the next pharaoh, Sekhemket, planned a still more grandiose step pyramid complex at Saqqara, and the later king Kaaba began one such complex a few miles south of Giza. The burial place of the last king of the dynasty, Huni, is unknown, and it has often been suggested that he built the pyramid of Maidum, but this probably was the work of his successor Snefru. Inscribed material naming third dynasty kings is known from the Maghara to Elephantine Island, but not from the Middle East or Nubia. And about organizational achievements of the third dynasty, they were reflected in its principal monument, whose message was centralization and concentration of the power, and reinforced in a negative sense by the archaeological evidence and records. So all the power centralized. There were actually no elites, local elites, or rich individuals out of the center. So this rigid structure was actually later formed, also the basis of the Old Kingdom administration, and later it was created, and imposition of its uniform pattern may have been impoverished by local centers. So this is interesting that the power was really very, very much centralized in this dynasty.